Hello and welcome to the Nerdman podcast. This week I'm going to be talking about early access games. So before I go on about talking about early access games, I guess, right now I'm trying out sort of a new set, getting rid of the green screen for the moment. If you've been watching, if you haven't been watching, you wouldn't have any clue if you're just listening. So anyways, what I do want to say is that going forward, if you're listening to this on SoundCloud or whatever, downloading it on there, I am not at the moment going to be paying for a pro account, and what happens is I can only keep 3 hours of footage or whatever you want to call it, sound files at one time on SoundCloud. If I go over that, the oldest file basically goes into sort of a hidden mode and nobody can see it. It still exists there. But anyways, that being said, that's what's going to happen going forward. So you're always going to get probably my last several, maybe 6 to 8 most current podcasts on SoundCloud. But if you want to listen to older ones as they get bumped, you will have to go to YouTube. They're all going to be up on YouTube as videos, so which they have been this whole time. And you can always check the links on my website, and they're all on my website there on how to find them. So anyways, little announcement over. Let's get into early access games. And basically what I want to talk about is why I don't like early access games, and basically how I think they're ruining the gaming industry in general. So I guess where I want to start is games used to be complete when you bought them. You would buy a game and it would be complete. You'd have the final version, and in the past, early on, if there was a bug in it and whatever, oftentimes that didn't get, fixed, and that was in the game, and that was that. But games were complete. There was a process to how a game got finished. You have obviously the programmers and the designers and all that making the game, and then you have the ever important play testers. Those are people who are hired to test your game, look for all kinds of bugs and things, and make sure that your game works when it is released. So that is sort of what leads into early access. So let me explain what early access games are for those that don't know. Early access games are basically when a developer or whatever is making a game, and all the while they're making little builds of the game, versions of the game, leading up to the final release, as I said, the completed game. Well, as they're making those little improvements over time, they're releasing each little improvement to the public, or essentially who has access to their game, the early access. And basically it's just a giant buggy game that is missing features, things don't work, it can crash, whatever, all sorts of stuff. Basically, an early access game is an incomplete game that the developer is still working on, and they have not reached their final release build yet. So what I don't like about it is essentially you have, again, like I said, in the past, and this still exists, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but you have playtesters who are people, it's a job. They get paid to play these games and write reports and test out, all the little nooks and crannies of the game, and see if there's anything wrong with it, if there's bugs and things that don't work, and then they send that back to the developers and they fine tune it, tweak it, fix it, whatever. So early access games sort of like, what really bugs me is basically you usually have to pay for early access games. Like, oftentimes there'll be maybe a Kickstarter or something, and somebody says, I'm going to make this game, and if you support my Kickstarter for X amount of dollars, you're going to get early access. Or sometimes games just show up on Steam and whatever as early access games that you can essentially purchase. You can purchase the game, and you will have the game, but you're going to go through all these versions and updates until they finally get to the final release build. That's if they ever get to it, which I'll talk about later. But basically, you are paying this company to play test their games for them. And I talked to so many different people about this. I have friends who love early access games. In fact, I know a few people who they play like all early access games. It's like their favorite thing. They want to be in on the ground level and so on and so forth. And then I have people who are on the other side, like me, who hate early access games and think they are essentially ruining the industry. And I'll explain more as we go on. So basically, my big, negative thing about it is just that you are paying money to help this company who should be paying you to figure out if their game works for them. And I'm a type of person, I like that completed game. I like the polished final game. And I'm going to give you, I guess, a little personal story of my time with early access. I really am adamantly against early access. And even if I think a game looks good, and I've even seen people play it, maybe I'll see a streamer or YouTuber or something playing an early access game, and it looks kind of fun. There's a couple that I can think of. I think Gang Beasts is one that's still in early access, I believe, but it looks like a fun game. I just saw, I can't even think of the name of it now, and it's some sort of like army game that was on Node, where basically you set up an army and it just has a sort of a physics-based game where an AI and you just set up a formation and two armies fight each other. It looked like fun, and I actually signed up for the I guess early access for that one. That is essentially the first time because it just looked like a fun game to screw around with. But my real first foray into early access gaming is H1Z1, King of the Kill, not the standard like single player game, which again blows my mind that they split it into two games. That's a whole other topic, but essentially they've split the game into a single player game and a multiplayer game. They're two separate games. You have to pay two different prices for it, and again, early access. If you're going to make people pay, give them everything. Why do they get only one thing or the other? They don't split multiplayer out of games in any other situation. Again, okay, getting back to it. H1Z1, King of the Kill. I got it because my friends are playing it and everything. And we, to play it, they all wanted to play it. So I also got the game. And it's the buggiest game ever. It's essentially a first/third-person shooter. You're in a zombie-type world. There's things missing in it that just should be there, and it's not fun half the time because of it. First of all, it's set in a post-apocalyptic type survival setting with zombies. There's no zombies in the game. Now, I think there's a mode somewhere where you can play with zombies in the world, but it's not a multiplayer mode from what I understand, which is sort of the whole point. You're in a world with other players, but there should be zombies, and zombies would add an awesome aspect to it. And maybe that will come down the road, but it's not there, and that reduces my fun. Another big thing is they haven't put a spectator mode in. If you die, you're in a team-based game, and you die, you don't get to come back. It's a survival type game. Well, you're just out of the game. Your friends are still playing, and you're just sitting there. You're just dead out of the game. there's nothing to do, nothing to watch. In other games, when you die, you get to watch through the eyes of the other players. That's spectator mode. And it's enough to keep you entertained and see what your friends are doing. And sometimes you can feel like you can help them, or maybe you can spot something on a screen or whatever. But essentially, it's an incomplete game. And the funny thing is so they keep making updates. When they add something new to it, it seems arbitrary or minor. It's like, why didn't you fix this one big thing? Or now you have all new bugs that weren't there before and all this stuff. And I know people say, well, that's just part of early access. But again, I feel like if the game was free, I would possibly consider, okay, they gave it to me free and whatever. But still, mostly you have to pay for early access games, and essentially you're doing a job for them that other people are supposed to get paid for. And now, granted, I am giving them no input because I'm not about to help them fix their game. And I'm really not about to be continuing to play their game. And the funny thing is, we recently got Rainbow Six Siege on a sale, and we started playing that as a group with my friends, and we've been playing that for a couple of weeks, and the servers went down. So we thought, okay, well, I guess we can go back and play H1Z1, and hopefully the servers will come up soon. It was just awful playing it, going from a nice, finished, polished game to this junky, unfinished, unpolished, broken game that half the time we crash out of, we don't get linked up together, things are missing, there's bugs. It just became apparent how terrible that game was in comparison to a completed, final, polished game. And in fact, we quit playing it and found a different game to go back and play because it just wasn't very fun. So those are kind of reasons why I don't like early access. But I think what is happening with the gaming industry with early access is a sort of new mentality that games don't need to be done when we release them. And we've seen a lot of high-profile games come out that are awful and buggy and terrible. I mean, the most recent ones would be like Assassin's Creed Unity was horrible when it came out, and probably the worst game release of all time, in my opinion, was Batman Arkham Knight for the PC. Now it sort of, I guess, worked fine on the PlayStation and Xbox and stuff, but I'm a mostly PC gamer. I do have a PS4, but most of my games I get on Steam and stuff, and I bought that game day one because I hardly ever buy day one games anymore, but I knew I loved that series, so I wanted to get it. You couldn't even play it. It was so awful and terrible, and why they even released it. It's the first game that I know of that they actually had to recall because it was so awful. And they tried to work on it for a while, and then they released it again, and it was still awful. And basically, they just left it and just said, well, we did our best with it. We'd basically have to rebuild the game from the ground up to make it work on the PC. We're not going to do it. So if you have an insanely good graphics card and stuff, you can sort of play it. So eventually, as time went on, I tried to pick it up again to see how well it was. I waited for a super deep sale on it, and yeah, you still can barely play it. I mean, I've got an okay graphics card that I can play every other game fine with, but that one, I just can hardly play it. It's so slow. The frame rates drop. I have to play it in low resolution and everything just to get it to even run okay. So I believe this is happening because of early access. I believe that these games are coming out incomplete with bugs in them. They're not tested as well as they used to be because of early access, because people have told the big companies, the big developers, that we don't care if our games are finished. We'll play them anyways. That's the message being sent to the gaming industry with early access. And I definitely think it is ruining the gaming industry and we're getting these buggy games. Now, I understand we're living in a day and age too where when a game releases and it has a bug in it, in the past, you just had that bug in the game. It's going to be there. They couldn't fix it. We're in a day and age with, over the, air type updates and stuff that we can update the games. The developers can fix those little bugs and send a patch over, and you can download the patch and your game will be fixed. Now I do like that. However, I don't want that to be like an excuse. Like we can just fix things once they're out. We'll just fix it. I'd still like the game to be as polished as possible. I don't want game breaking bugs for sure. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on early access games. This one is not going to be quite as long as my other ones, but do you guys play early access games? Do you have any issues? Have you had some bad stories with them? I mean, I just don't like them. I really don't like them. I want a polished game, and essentially I want higher standards for releases and stuff. And if you can't make your game like they used to and develop it and get it out there, because, okay, let me add one other thing to this. A lot of early access games never get to their final build. They never get to the final release of the game, or if they do, it's so many years later and nobody cares about it. Everybody's already had their fun with it and, quote unquote fun with it in their early access. By the time it comes out, nobody's playing it anymore. Nobody cares about the game anymore. So you sort of lose your hype because it's spread out over this long time, this long timeline of updates and various builds and different things. So I just think that again it's ruining it even for its own self, for its own game. That's early access. I mean, the only game I can think that is early access that has done well and successfully carried on over time and hit its build and just kept going is Minecraft. Minecraft was an early access game that honestly, I didn't jump on board with until it was in its final build, and I've only recently begun to even play it. But that's, there's always exceptions. There's success stories, things that work out. But overall, early access is a new thing hitting the gaming world, and it's not good. It's not a good thing, in my opinion. So again, let me know your thoughts in the comments, or communicate with me on Facebook, whatever. Just like to hear what you guys think. I know this is sort of a topic that people disagree on. So let me know. As always, if you are watching on YouTube, subscribe to my channel and stay up to date with my latest videos, podcasts, and reviews and things. And if you are listening online, let me remind you about the SoundCloud announcement that old videos will be going off. So, if you download them, you have them. But otherwise, you can always watch on YouTube the past ones. And as always, keep YouTubing it up if you're on YouTube. And otherwise, I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.